Hey, hi everyone. This is Ranmay here on Issuing Coffee with Experts. Today we have Robin, a CEO and founder of Birdhouse Marketing and Design. Welcome, Robin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. Robin, before we move forward, I request you to introduce yourself, your agency, to your audiences tonight, and we'll take ahead with the questions from there on. Would you mind introducing yourself and your agency, Robin?
Absolutely. So my name is Robin Agricola. I'm the founder and CEO of Birdhouse Marketing and Design. We're a full service brand marketing, design, digital marketing agency based in Massachusetts, but with employees working all around the country. We service clients mostly in the legal and medical spaces, but we certainly have clients in all different industries. And we do basically everything from logo design and branding all the way through design and development and into full service digital marketing and even more traditional marketing channels as well.
Superb. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah.
Robin, as a marketing consultant, how do you approach developing a comprehensive marketing strategy for your clients? Can you walk us through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we engage with a new client, the first step is really just like collecting all of this information. We want to get as much information as we can, starting with the basics, starting the simple questions like who's your primary target audience? What are your objectives? What are your overall goals? What does your audience need on a pragmatic level as well as on an emotional level to make a connection with your brand? What makes your product or service superior to a competitor's? Where have your successes been with previous marketing efforts? Where have your failures been? What are the sticking points that prevent prospects from moving forward with hiring you? And really, through these conversations, what we're trying to do is piece together a story. So we want to know during the sales cycle, what are the questions you're being asked over and over again? Those questions, those are your stories, your answers to those questions, those are your stories. So we want to draw those out of our clients and making sure that we're sharing information that is relevant to the consumers and what resonates with them as well. And then understanding the why behind the company. So their purpose, that's huge. People connect with purposes, not products or services. So we want to make sure that we're able to connect that deeper core value with the client's needs. And then once we've gone through that process of the deep dive and really like wrapping our head around the business and what their goals and objectives are, then we really dive in and put together a strategy that's going to outline goals and objectives, their unique value, their core values, their a message map that kind of connects their core messages with their audiences and outlines how those messages need to be delivered, when and where and how, and on what channels and platforms. And then finally, a detailed roadmap for how to achieve their marketing objectives through the use of various media channels, whether they have them already or whether we need to create new materials for them.
Absolutely. And I just want to ask you this. Does this happen more often when you kind of sit with the founders, the owners, the CEOs, CXOs, when you ask them these questions about the vision, the values, and all these questions that we have in our deck as marketers. So
Yeah.
does this happen with you wherein they actually not have thought of it at times? They go back to the drawing board and come back with answers. They would feel that we have built a product, we have built a service, is it supposed to be sold out, right? And they have
Yep.
not really thought about it. So does this happen with
Yeah, all the time. The questions that we ask in the process of getting to know the client and understanding their challenges, it really is an eye-opening process for the client. I think a lot of times they're close to the business. So it's really hard to get that like trees from the forest from the trees. Look, you very rarely step back and look at your business from that bird's eye perspective. So I think a lot of the questions we ask challenge our clients to take a look at their business and their marketing challenges through a different lens.
right?
And it can be challenging, I think, a lot too. And as marketers, we're really good at taking a message and pivoting it to be more of an emotion, make it more of an emotional connection with the audience, as opposed to that promotional, this is what we sell and this is why you should buy it. What are we solving? What's the
Right.
deeper level? What's that deeper emotion? And I think getting the clients to think in that way is always a really enlightening part of the marketing process.
Absolutely. Why did you start out? What problem did you think of solving when you started out with this business idea? And in the long run, people kind of tend to forget no fault of theirs because there is a lot of operational load that comes with time. They kind of miss out on the idea that they started out. So today's crowded digital landscape What do you think set successful marketing campaigns apart from those that fall short? Are there any common elements that you look at or see in campaigns that deliver measurable results?
Sure. The most successful campaigns that we're seeing are, you're going to hear me say it a lot today, but the ones that connect with consumers on an emotional level. The really like hard selling, like act now or else. That messaging is just really not what consumers want to hear anymore. And yeah, they're pretty desensitized to it as well. Specifically in social media, we are constantly nudging our clients to send us pictures of them and their teams, their dogs, their kids visiting the office, anything that shows them as human beings and not just business people. And of course, that type of content does need to be aligned with a bigger strategy. I don't think you can just start posting selfie of me cooking dinner at night. That's not going to help your cause. But when done properly, those like insights into the human nature of a business are really powerful. And when we're looking at our clients' metrics and analytics, those are the posting content that are getting so much more engagement than anything else that we're putting together. It performs so well. Other than that, we're really seeing the more hyper personalized you can get with a campaign, the better it's going to perform. So, talking about email list segmentation, retargeting campaigns when that makes sense, and really just getting granular with your messaging and fine tuning it for almost like the specific individual you're talking to and not necessarily this concept of the target audience as a whole.
And then we have different channels. You did mention social forums, multiple channels. How do you ensure that the message stays the same across multiple social channels for a brand that you're working on, including digital or traditional media for that matter?
So, in our process at the beginning, when we start working with a client and we're developing that strategy, the message map that we put together is actually a really important tool. I think it's obviously important for the client to understand their messaging, but even for us, it's something that we reference regularly. So when we're putting together our social media posts or we're putting together content for emails, we are constantly referencing that message map to make sure, okay, is this one core message still at the center of everything that we're saying? Are we communicating messaging that's in alignment with the overall strategy, the branding? And that's just something that we have to constantly be doing a gut check on because it can be really easy to start going down tangents and creating new messages. But really, there's a lot of strategy and thought that goes into developing those message maps. So we try to stay pretty true to that.
Like we were discussing, storytelling is very important, right? In marketing and otherwise, overall, relating the business vision with the customer's needs. If we talk about storytelling play in marketing, how do you incorporate that into your branding and messaging? If you can throw some light on that.
I think a lot of it is showing and not telling. So if our companies, if our clients have certain core values, like I have a particular client of mine that's in Portland, Oregon, and animal rights and humane society messaging is really important to them. And just showing that. So, like, they host a lot of events that go to benefit those charities and organizations, but even down to showing like the pictures of the dogs in the office with the owners. And that's been a huge area for them to connect with their audience, just like matching those values, matching those visions. Not to say that they would only accept a client who has a dog or cares about animal rights, but it is a really important human connection that they've made. And just sharing that, making sure that we're collaborating with other organizations in the community that are also aligned with those core values, making sure we're providing those other organizations with value and taking any value that they're able to offer us in terms of co-marketing or co-branding.
And you did mention that work with a lot of small businesses. How different is it to kind of create or develop a brand voice for a small business and tool that is unique and authentic to their business at the same time? Because this market is a lot cluttered at all times. So how kind of work on building a different brand voice for the businesses that work with you?
Yeah, for sure. To define that brand voice at the beginning of our engagement. And I have a whole questionnaire that I go through with my clients that really helps us understand. And I think that going back to what you were saying earlier about like this process being just as valuable for the clients, a lot of time our clients have no idea what kind of brand they even want to develop. And so we have this whole questionnaire that we go through with them that opens a dialogue that really sheds a lot of light on what our job as brand marketing experts is. But my favorite question every single time is, what are the 3 to 5 adjectives that you would want your consumers to use to describe your brand? And you only get 3 to 5. You can't have any more than 5 because you can't be everything to everyone. So
Okay.
that really gets people thinking. I'm always like, don't answer me right now. I want you to think about it over the weekend. I want to hear from you in 5 days. Like I said, 3 to 5 adjectives, and it could be approachable, credible, professional, energizing, trustworthy. There's literally thousands of adjectives that could be used. So
So,
whittling it down to just a handful is a challenge, but that really helps us guide our strategy in terms of devising a voice for these brands. So again, every time we're putting together content, whether for social, for email, for a blog or whatever, we want to make sure, are these adjectives, do they apply to this content that we're developing? If someone read this content, could it be described as adjective A, B, or C? And if not, what do we need to do to tweak that language so that the voice is, so there's some integrity to the voice?
yeah, absolutely. A reverse mechanism of it is, as businesses, while they are running after always targeting that blue ocean out there in terms of the consumer segment, which they have not been able to get to, they miss out trapping their existing customer segment, understanding why did they become your customer in the first place? What do they relate in terms of their business? And if
Yep.
you have understood the nerve there in terms of why they're using your product, your service, what do they relate to? And then start your marketing campaign basis those parameters because of which they came to your business in the first place. That existing consumer base becomes your data point. They just strategize your branding or marketing campaign up to an extent. But as businesses, we forget about the customer segment that we already have. And we are targeting the blue ocean out there at all times. It's a bit about reverse mechanism, like you mentioned, got those 3 to 5 executives methodology. It actually works in terms of building your content, doing that storytelling, understanding if those parameters are being looked out for in the content or not. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Talking about website design, Robin, how do you optimize? What is your process of taking off parameters while creating a new website or developing a new website from scratch for a small business, and how you ensure that all the parameters are being looked at and taken care of?
Yeah, sure. Of course, like I'm always going to go back to branding. To me, my background is in branding. I just think it's so important. I want for all of my clients, no matter what marketing touch point a consumer is looking at, I want it to be very clear that it is from that client. So, that a lot of the branding work, usually if I start with a small business, we are starting with logo design. And that's usually a really beautiful process of going from the logo design, picking the color palette, choosing the fonts. That process lends itself really nicely, just it segues really nicely into what the web design process. Coming off of a strong brand guidelines, that's obviously incorporated. My primary goal with a website is, can someone land on this page and know instantly what you do and why you do it better than your competitors? Like within not even 30 seconds. We're seeing people bounce off websites so quickly. If you're not hitting them with that right message, gone. If that page doesn't load fast enough, they're gone. Obviously, like from a technological standpoint, there's a lot of stuff that goes into building a website, but from a branding and graphic design standpoint, we want that who you are, what you do, and why you're really good at it. That's front and center. But also like multiple calls to action. So depending on where a consumer is in the sales cycle, we want them to take an action that is measurable, that captures their information, that allows us to either segment them into an email list where we can later follow up with a very personalized follow up, or we want them to fire a certain pixel that triggers a retargeting campaign in Facebook. But no, depending on where they are, they may be willing to sign up for an email newsletter, but they're not necessarily willing to schedule that free consultation yet. Or maybe they are ready to schedule that consultation. Maybe they're interested in learning about a topic and they want to download an ebook, but they're not like totally ready. You have to address the people who are just learning and gathering information just as much as you address those people who are in those final stages of the decision making process. So I like to give lots of different calls to actions in alignment with the overall strategy. So making sure if your primary goal is to schedule consultations, that's going to get the most visual attention on the website. We're going to try to drive the consumer's eye there. And then we always want to drive people to call, just to click that like tap to call button. That's really like the people who are picking up the phone to call are the people who are ready to make a decision. So you want to target them as well.
Very rightly mentioned, the hierarchy should be such wherein the prospect is knowing about what next he or she is about to take. And that should be right in front of them. They should not be navigating through multiple pages or scrolling down to be able to see or locate that button. Because that kind of proves the interest, right? Like you mentioned, 30 seconds is a lot of time for us to be able to grab the eyeballs of the consumer. And it makes our job so difficult, right? If you say 30 seconds is a lot of time to expect the consumer to be on your page, right?
It's so true.
Yes, it becomes very important to be having those ATM buttons right in front of you and at the right place and at the right time. So, yeah, I completely relate to the, if I may use the word, pain that we all go through.
Yeah, for sure. And we're always fine tuning. Like I tell clients all the time, a website is essentially a living and breathing piece of marketing material. It's not 20 years ago when we were programming sites in HTML and hard coding, and there was no like CMS, there was no way for a consumer to edit their own website. You really did have to get it right a higher percentage of the time because making changes didn't take 2 seconds. Nowadays, I use WordPress. That's my platform of choice. I've built in Drupal before, the 1,000 other platforms, but we're working in WordPress where like essentially I can build a site for a client and I'm just like, hey, click this button that says edit and you can change content. Like you can go or you send that content to me. It's going to take me 30 seconds to change that content. So we can adjust based on what we're seeing in your analytics and your metrics of like where people are bouncing off the site. What can we do to capture them a little better at that point? What are the trends that we're seeing and how can we address them? So we're constantly looking at those analytics and making decisions about what to change next or what to soup up to generate a better response.
Absolutely. And then before we let you go, Robin, we wanted to understand your thoughts on the burning topic of AI. What is your take on ChatGPT content? Overall, like,
That's a really good question. And this is obviously a super hot topic to bring up. I think AI has its place, and I think it can be very valuable for a brand that doesn't have a huge budget, needs to get some social media posts done, needs a Google Ads headline. A lot of those AI content generators are great for those small snippets of content. In terms of long form content, they're just not there yet. Trying to get ChatGPT to give me a blog about a lot of my law firms are estate planning law firms. So if I punch in what is the difference between a will and a trust, I can get a 5-paragraph blog, 300, 400 words. There's no personality to it. I find so writing is very near and dear to me. I'm a published author. I love writing as my passion. For me, I read through those ChatGPT or AI blogs and I'm just like, no, this is all wrong. There's no personality. There's no nothing here. So I think they need to come a little bit more. They need to be developed a little bit more before sort of long form content will be viable. Right now, I think in terms of a small business without a huge budget, being able to pump out some social posts, it's better to have something than nothing. But
yeah,
you can have customized work. It's always better to be customized. And plus, just the human element of it. I've had my poor writers have all come to me and really just asked, are our jobs safe? Are you going to start using AI? And I'm like, your job is safe. I'm always going to pay a human over paying a robot 100% of the time. That's if I have the choice, if I can make that decision.
very nice. It is lovely, Robin, to understand your thoughts and your insights. And thank you so much for taking our time for this podcast. I'm sure our audiences will have benefited a lot out of the insights that you shared today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to chat with you.
Cheers. Thank you, Robin.
Absolutely. Have a great day.